Study at Home webinar. We're excited today to have Maria Rodriguez from Valley Behavioral Health. She's been with us before and done a variety of topics, but today she's going to be talking about boosting memory and cognition. So we're really excited about this topic. And just a little bit about Maria, for those of you who maybe don't know her, I'm going to read her little bio. She said, I've been a wellness health educator for the past 8 years, working with nonprofit community organizations, hospitals, school districts, and public health departments. I've worked with a variety of audiences ranging from children up to senior citizens in my current work with Valley Behavioral Health. I have a bachelor's degree in nutrition and a master's in public health and have been CHED certified for the past 3 years. I'm passionate about helping destigmatize mental health conversations and helping individuals better understand the connection between our physical and mental well-being. So we're really excited to have Maria here with us. If you can also just remember to keep yourself muted, you'll have a chance to ask questions as we go along or maybe at the end. But if you're not talking, if you can just leave yourself muted, that's really helpful for background noise. But we'll just turn the time over to Maria.
All right, thank you so much, Marianne, and thanks everyone for joining our session today. I'm happy to be back, and just like Marianne mentioned, if you have questions throughout the slides in the presentation, feel free to let me know, or we will also have some time at the end of the presentation if you want to hold off on those questions. So today we are going to talk about some things that we can do to keep our brains young and sharp. I think this is a very interesting topic, and it's very popular in a lot of our senior centers that Valley, myself and my coworker Jessie, we go out to different senior centers and provide classes on different topics. And this one tends to be one of the more popular ones. And I think it's popular because it is a concern for a lot of folks. If we start to forget things, we sort of go into panic mode as to what does this mean? Does this mean my memory is deteriorating? Should I be concerned? What are some prevention steps that I can take to kind of slow down the aging of our brain? And so throughout this session, we'll talk about some things that are within our control, lots of things that are very practical and easy to insert into our day-to-day routine to help us slow down the aging of our brain. So let's get started here. I'll advance the slides. Let's see if it lets me. Here it goes. So our objectives for our session, we have 3 main things that we sort of want to walk away with, understanding or just some tools to practice. So we want to be able to understand what is the stress and brain connection. We'll talk about that very shortly. Stress plays a big factor in the health of our brain. 2, identify habits that can help slow down our cognitive function, or it can help slow down, any deterioration or any issues with memory, concentration, and so forth. Number 3, identify exercises that we can practice on a regular basis to boost our memory. So let's jump into our first objective here. So I wanted to talk briefly about the stress and memory connection. I found this information very interesting. And this basically shows us how chronic stress, experiencing chronic stress that's not managed, that maybe it's been going on for a long time in our lives just due to unresolved problems, worries that are on our mind, can affect the function of our brain. What it does when we experience chronic stress, it leads to chronic inflammation that starts to affect different parts of our brain. It can affect the hippocampus, the amygdala, and these are areas of the brain that are in charge of focused concentration, creating memories, retaining memories. So this sort of points us to understanding that managing our stress becomes super important. If we have a lot of stress, a lot of worries on our mind, and we're not finding solutions for these things, it's going to start to alter other functions physically, right? It's going to start to affect our brain function. So if you look at the graphic here on the screen, It's sort of like a cycle, it's a domino effect. If we have chronic stress, this can lead to a host of other things. So it can affect our sleep quality. So we may have a hard time falling asleep. If we're not getting enough rest, it's going to affect our brain functions the next day. And over a long period of time, it can start to damage all of these different parts, like the hippocampus, like I've mentioned. It can lead to not making the healthiest food choices when it comes to our nutrition. If we're sleep deprived, if we are chronically stressed out, we're going to go for those comfort foods that are high in things like sugar, salt, fat. And all of those foods are not going to nourish our brain how it needs. Our brain runs mostly on healthy fats, and a lot of those are not our first choice. When we are under stress, we go for those processed type of fats that we find in treats, sweets, fatty cuts of meat. And so we're not feeding the brain the fuel that it needs to do its jobs. And it also leads to emotional distress. We know that there is a connection when we think about sleep, nutrition, if there's issues going on for us mentally, that can lead to things like depression and anxiety. And when someone is depressed, they're less likely to be active, right? So we're more sedentary. We tend to isolate a little bit more. We don't interact and socialize with other people. And all of those things can lead to brain atrophy, right? We're not challenging our brain, we're not stimulating our brain, which can then lead to those negative memory changes and effects. So I kind of want to paint this picture that it's all connected. It's interconnected. One thing will then affect all of the other factors that are important in staying healthy mentally and physically. So very interesting, the stress and memory connection. Just to kind of follow up with my second point here, stress, what it does, it causes certain parts of our brain that deal with memory to basically turn off. So our brain can actually better focus on building up parts of our brain that handle stress. So if the brain feels like we are under attack, fight or flight response, we're going to just focus on addressing the threat in front of us rather than safekeeping our memory, concentration, focus, and all of those things. However, the good news is that there is a lot of stuff that we can do to better manage our stress, find healthy tools that work for us. There's a lot of different tools, but we do know that certain things will work for certain people, that for others, will do nothing for them. So it's through trial and error that we learn what works for us, and sticking to these tools, practicing these tools on a regular basis is what will help us to bring down that stress, reduce those cortisol levels in our body, which are the stress hormones, and help us to help our brain to do its functions when we can't manage that stress. So let's talk about how we handle stress. Some folks are naturally better at handling stressful situations than others. Some of us, if we just have too many things on our plate, too many things that we have to get done, that can be very debilitating, and we can really focus on completing any one task. So there is a lot of variation in how folks can handle stress. And I think over time, we also learn what works best for us as individuals. So I wanted to see if anybody in our session today would be willing to share what are some ways that you handle stress in your life. It could be over the microphone, or you could write it in the chat box if you prefer to do that. But can anyone share what helps you to handle stress when you notice that it's building up, it's becoming chronic, starting to affect your mood, how you feel physically? What helps you to sort of cope with that and find a healthy way of releasing that stress? Any feedback, any comments? Yes, Paige. So yes, exercise is wonderful for so many different reasons. We know it's so effective to keep our mood in a positive place, be in a better state of mind. It helps physically, of course. There's a lot of great benefits. Doing art, I see that, yes. So picking a hobby, identifying what is a passion or a skill. So things like Tai Chi, something that you can look forward to doing that you find relaxing while you're doing it. Looking for someone else to serve or help. I definitely agree with that. A lot of times, what can help is to find some sort of purpose or outlet and helping other folks, whether it is just, a friend or a family member, or volunteering in your community can be a great way to distract ourselves from the issues that we're going through, the worries that are on our mind, and feel good about helping someone else with their skills. Reading to redirect attention to something else. Yes, reading is a wonderful hobby for a lot of folks. We learn more things, so it's a great way to kind of keep your brain on its toes. We're challenging itself, the brain. We're learning new information. It's a good de-stressor in the sense that sometimes we get lost in a book. It can be a healthy distraction. Music, being in silence. Singing, yes, singing is also a great way to be able to de-stress and just, find a way to put your mind in a healthy, positive state, right? Pull away from all of the things that are bringing you down. So thanks everyone for sharing all of the things that help you. And like I mentioned, there was a lot of variety in those comments because different things will work for different people. So that is one of the key things that if you haven't yet, I definitely encourage you to explore ways that you can try to de-stress. Maybe you've tried a couple of things that they haven't worked for you, then it's an opportunity to try something else. Give each activity, a good fair chance, at least stick with it for a week or two. And if it's not really serving the purpose of relaxation for you, then it's okay to kind of jump onto something else. Discover a new hobby, try something new, go on a walk. I saw in their music too, spending time with a friend, calling a friend. All of those things can be really effective. But what really makes the biggest difference is that you use these tools. So it's great to know about them, but when we are facing those situations where we're really stressed out or worried, that's when we need to go into our toolbox of activities that we can pull from and use them consistently. So we can really start to notice the benefits and for it to help us to actually relax. So let's talk about how everything is connected. We'll kind of keep going back to this theme because if we want to have a healthy, sharp brain, we also have to take care of our body. It's all one. So healthy body, healthy mind. Talking a little bit more here about exercise. We know that exercise can improve our cognitive performance by activating neurons in parts of the brain that are not used regularly. So it can actually reverse some of the effects of that chronic stress that we've been experiencing. It does this through neurogenesis. So what it does when we are in the habit of exercising regularly, exercise can help our brain form new cells in the brain's hippocampus. So it'll help for those neurons to communicate across the left and right hemisphere of the brain better. So you may notice that you have better concentration, you can focus on tasks better, you can sort of stay on a task for a longer period of time than you could before, and just overall elevated mood are some of the benefits of exercising regularly. Some additional things that can also really help is being aware and conscious of striving to have a healthy weight and also exercising, which we've mentioned. Eating or trying our best to eat fruits and vegetables. It's not about perfection. We don't have to eat only fruits and vegetables, but it's important to find a good balance of allowing yourself treats, but also making the effort to add some color, some foods that are rich in fiber into your meals on a daily basis. Okay, balance, not restriction. We don't want to go into any extremes there. And finally, consuming low amounts of alcohol are all habits that can really reduce our risk for experiencing cognitive impairments. So 60% less likely to suffer from those cognitive impairments, including things like dementia. And within the umbrella of dementia, we know the most common is Alzheimer's disease. It seems like rates are on the rise with Alzheimer's disease. We can control a lot of the risk when it comes to those type of conditions just by focusing on lifestyle factors, diet, exercise, alcohol consumption, making sure we're active, find ways to manage our stress are all decisions that we make on a regular basis. Now, I wanted to sort of pinpoint or sort of point out a couple of brain boosting habits, things that we can start implementing into our day-to-day routine to help keep our brains healthy. I won't talk about exercise too much since I've already mentioned this one, but we do know it helps increase blood flow to the brain and help maintain those healthy brain connections. And you may know this already, but the recommendation is about 30 minutes, 5 days a week. If we are not used to exercising regularly, it's totally okay to start slowly. It's actually better than trying to jump into, say, an hour of exercise. So try to build it up little by little, start with 10, 15 minutes, and then build it up from there until you can get about 150 minutes a week. Try to include activities that increase your heart rate. So a lot of times when we talk about getting those 150 minutes of exercise, we like to mention moderate activity. So moderate activity means that you notice that your body is working a little bit harder. So your heart rate is beating faster. You may start to feel a little bit warm. Maybe some sweat is happening. We want to challenge your bodies a bit than regular. So not just a leisurely walk, can we pick up the pace a little bit more so it becomes a bit more challenging? That's where we get a lot of the cardiovascular benefits that we're looking for there. 2 is eating a Mediterranean diet. We know that Mediterranean diets include a lot of those healthy fats that our brain needs for proper function. So usually that will be Mediterranean. So what are some healthy fats? Healthy fats are things that come from nuts and seeds. So any type of nut, seeds too, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, almonds, pistachios, all of those type of foods are going to be really important to try to incorporate on a more regular basis. Fish, fatty fish, so things like salmon are really beneficial for brain health, and whole grains too. So we'll look at some examples in more detail in a few slides that are coming up. Healthy fats decrease our risk for heart disease and increases our mental focus, slowing down that cognitive decline. So it definitely has multiple benefits. It reduces our risk for a lot of different chronic conditions, but also helps with that mental clarity. Something specific to, or specifically to think about in our diet is how much sugar we are consuming. Sugar can be very damaging to our bodies physically and mentally. Too much sugar is linked to different types of chronic diseases, and it actually has the power to alter the shape of our brain. So it can reduce our brain volume, and it can have a negative effect on our short-term memory as well. Kicking the habit of sugar is really hard though for many folks, just because it is a very addicting substance. It's been compared a lot to doing drugs, hard drugs, and the body craves it once we're kind of in the habit of maybe having a treat, having something sweet every day. The body's sort of gonna go through withdrawals to if we take it away. So sometimes for folks, it's best to just kind of ease back on the sugar little by little to allow your body to get used to having less sugar in its system. But wherever it is that we can cut out sugar, it's going to be really beneficial for us. It can also help with just mental clarity, less brain fog. It has been connected to brain fog, sluggishness, tiredness. So experiencing some of those benefits of cutting out sugar can motivate folks to kind of keep on that in that direction and continue to cut back on the amount of sugar that we're consuming. Omega-3 fats, which are the things that we find in those fatty fish, nuts and seeds. Like I mentioned previously, it helps with a lot of different conditions like heart disease. But more importantly, I think it reduces inflammation. And we know a lot of these chronic conditions, the root cause is inflammation in the body. So if we can do our part in minimizing that inflammation, it can reduce our risk for a lot of different conditions. It's also linked to helping relieve stress due to that reduction in inflammation and things like anxiety. Next here we have get enough sleep. Lack of sleep is strongly associated with poor memory and concentration. And we touched on this one a bit earlier, but we do need at least those 7 hours of sleep every night, just for our brain to recharge, to rejuvenate. Rest is when that reset button is pressed. So we need enough sleep in order for our bodies to go through all of those rejuvenation stages that it has to go through. If we have a lot of interrupted sleep or insomnia, that's going to then affect how we feel the next day. It's going to affect our mood, it's going to affect our thinking, and how well our brain can function. So if we're having issues with sleep, it is important that we try to address it, that we talk with our doctor. We try to really pay attention to our sleep environment. Is it conducive to falling asleep quickly? Are we spending a lot of time on our phones, in front of a screen? Those things can disrupt our sleep. So we want to make sure we're conscious of what our habits like about an hour before we go to sleep. Are they helping us to fall asleep, or are they encouraging us to continue to struggle with sleep? Is there, I think I saw a comment come up, but I wasn't able to read it before it disappeared. Could somebody let me know what that was?
Hi, Carrie, it was Shauna. So I've been doing my Fitbit tracker, and do you understand the different stages of sleep? Because you've got the REM, the light, and the deep.
So, just kind of superficially, I do know that we want to spend a good amount of time in that REM sleep, and that's where sometimes folks struggle to spend enough time in there because of just disruptions. We do tend to wake up a lot at night, but normally folks can just kind of fall back asleep and go back into their sleep cycle. But sometimes for whatever reason it is, there's a lot of stimulation in the room, or we're worrying a lot about a lot of different things, we can get back into that cycle. And if we have a lot of interruptions, it can lead to not feeling rested, right? So even if we thought we slept for 8 hours, there was a lot of interruptions in the middle of the night. So our body wasn't able to kind of get into that deep sleep that we need for feeling refreshed and recharged. With those Fitbits though, they're not 100% reliable. You know, I would definitely just kind of go off of how you're feeling, the things that you notice. Am I waking up a lot at night? Do I need to get up and maybe go to the restroom, do a lot of trips where I am waking up my body a bit as I go and do those activities? Is there a lot of tossing and turning that's happening? And if so, if you notice that's happening every day, then we have to look at other factors. What is affecting my sleep? What am I eating? What sort of activities am I engaging in on a daily basis that's preventing me from having or experiencing restful sleep? And if it's not something that, or something that you've struggled with for a long time, actually was was having a class earlier today, and there was a lady that said that she finally got a diagnosis that she has sleep apnea. And she always struggled with her sleep. And it just took her a long time to kind of figure out what it was. So if you have a feeling that there could be an issue, definitely something to bring up with your doctor, because you know there are alternatives. We may need extra assistance to be able to get restful sleep that it's not within our control, right? Maybe medical intervention is needed to assist that. So I think we can definitely help ourselves a lot more than we think. If you have that intuition that something's happening, you're not getting good quality sleep, then I think it's important to follow up on that, because that could be affecting everything else, metabolism, the way that you are able to focus and concentrate the rest of the day, your mood. So definitely kind of dig a little bit deeper into that if you are having some sleep problems, I would say.
Great, thank you very much.
So we're going to continue here with some of our brain boosting habits. So the next one I have here is the importance of continuing to learn and challenge our brain. So some of you already mentioned having a hobby. If you don't have any hobbies currently, it's an opportunity to discover things that might be enjoyable for you. Starting a new hobby, reading books about a variety of topics. If you're used to only reading fiction books, can you expand a little bit and maybe read some nonfiction books? See how that kind of sits with you if you enjoy that. If that is stimulating for you to kind of try something new. It could be challenging yourself to learn a new language or a new instrument. And I think these are very challenging things to try. I definitely admire people that play instruments or know multiple languages, especially if we learn those languages later in life, because that can be really hard and very challenging to do. But that is a great brain exercise. You're really challenging your brain to learn new words, to learn how to maneuver your hands in different ways in order to gain skills in those things. So kind of exploring your senior center and saying, hey, there's French or there's Spanish here on the calendar. Do I want to try something new this month? And that could be something really great that we can do for ourselves. Kind of similar to that, keep your brain guessing. Change the order of your morning routine. That would be an example. If you're used to doing things the same way in the same order, can I change something or do something slightly different? And this is going to really sort of shock your brain, because a lot of times we go on autopilot, we just wake up, we go to the restroom, we brush our teeth, all of these things. And we don't really think about what we're doing, we just do it because we're used to doing it in a certain sequence. But when we change something, we have to sort of waken up our brain and say, hey, pay attention, because now we're doing something different that you're not used to. So kind of having fun with that and changing it up here and there. You don't have to change your entire routine, because then that could become stressful and we want to avoid stress. But at least changing something up can be a good activity to stimulate the brain. It could be taking a different route to get to the store. If you always go down the same streets to get to the grocery store, try a different route. See how that feels. See if that's challenging, stimulating for your brain. It could be eating your meals with your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, try eating with your left hand. It might be really challenging at first, right? Because your brain is not used to using that hand in that way. So again, it's a challenge to kind of get better at it. Third here is socialize. Interacting with people keeps us on our toes and can help relieve stress and symptoms of depression. So just kind of having a conversation with an acquaintance or somebody new, a stranger, maybe you're taking a class somewhere and you decided to strike up a conversation with someone that's in the class. It takes a lot of mental energy to keep that conversation going if you don't know that person. Just trying to think of things to talk about or things that you have in common. That in itself can be a challenge for our brain. So I hope you can kind of see here that the pattern of what we're saying is that it's important to challenge your brain, try new things, to be able to stimulate those neurons to fire better. If we're always kind of comfortable in our routine, doing everything the same way in the same order, our brains can adapt really quickly and get used to that. So it's important to kind of throw something new into the mix. Additional things here, practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness can be really effective for a lot of different things that we're struggling with. And mindfulness really is not, it doesn't have to be a complicated concept. It's just about being present in the now, and appreciating what's happening now, instead of always kind of being in our heads and thinking about what I have to do later in the day, what happened yesterday, or just thinking about the things that we messed up doing, right? A lot of times we're very self-critical about the things that have happened in the past. And we have to come to the realization that we can't change the past, right? We're just torturing ourselves by thinking about how things could have been or should have been. So when we practice mindfulness, we really try to be present in what's happening now, appreciating the current moment, really experiencing it with all of our senses rather than, trying to be somewhere else. So mindfulness can be great in managing that stress. So we talked about stress management techniques, and that could be a great one. And it also helps improve concentration. If we try things like meditation, that can be really hard for a new person because we're not used to having that discipline of just kind of being in the present moment and concentrating what's happening now. So that could be a skill. That could be something new that we try. And over time, we get better and better at it. We can focus on meditating for 20, 30 minutes if that's something you're interested in, or just kind of stick with 5-10 minutes, which is more doable for most people. Getting enough vitamin D. We know that low levels of vitamin D have been linked to reduce cognitive function and also higher risk of developing things like dementia. Vitamin D is a vitamin that really does regulate our mood. How we're feeling, it's highly linked to depression. So if we're low on vitamin D, we may start to experience a lot of symptoms that are linked to high levels of stress. Also, higher levels of anxiety tend to happen when people are deficient in vitamin D. And we get vitamin D from the sun. So just taking a walk outside can be a great way to de-stress, can be a great way to get more vitamin D, which in turn will help us to better concentrate, have better brain health. So again, it's a domino effect there. So if you haven't checked your vitamin D levels, I always encourage people to do so. You can get that done when you have a physical in your lab work. You may have to ask, though, your doctor specifically to check for vitamin D. Not all doctors' offices will do that without an ask first, but definitely important to know where you are because most folks do have a deficiency or are just low in their vitamin D. Third here is choose anti-inflammatory foods. So these are foods that are high in antioxidants, which means they can help reduce inflammation in the body, which in turn can reduce the body's stress response. And I think in the next slide, I have a couple of examples of foods that are high in antioxidants. But again, it's all about bringing down those cortisol levels, bringing down that stress response in the body, so it doesn't then lead to affecting our brain function. So here's some examples that I wanted to provide. We mentioned fish, fatty fish, so things like salmon, tuna, trout, sardines, they are known for those healthy omega-3s. They're very important for proper brain function. Then we have things like berries, very high in antioxidants. So any type of berry that you like would be great. Turmeric is an anti-inflammatory root. Sometimes you can find it, or most of the time you find it as in the spice section of your grocery store, in the baking section sometimes too. You can find it as a root whole. It's harder to find. Most often you will find it as a powder. And folks oftentimes just like to sprinkle it on their food. So it could be on your eggs or just into water. Doesn't have a super strong flavor if you put it in water. Usually a tablespoon, no more than a tablespoon is good a day, and to get those benefits. They also have supplements, so if it's easier for you, you could always take it that way. But of course, with all of these things, definitely, or at least with the turmeric, if you are going to take supplements, do just kind of run it by your doctor. It's always safer just to get the okay. Things like broccoli and any broccoli related vegetable like cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, very high in antioxidants. So it's very important to try to incorporate at least a couple times a week into our diet to get the benefits of those. Green tea is another great antioxidant. Could be an alternative to coffee. So instead of having multiple cups of coffee, we can have our coffee in the mornings. But if we need another sort of pick-me-up, it does have caffeine. You can opt for some green tea in the afternoon. And then nuts and seeds. We mentioned this one too with those omega-3 content of nuts and seeds, very high in omega-3s. We want to make sure we're getting about a handful if we can most days of the week. That would be really great. Okay, so I wanted to try something fun here with our group. So these are some hand exercises that we like to talk about. So how these work, we know that what helps our left and right brain hemispheres better communicate are doing activities or exercises across the middle of the body, the midline of the body. So these exercises do that. It challenges us to do different motions with our hands at the same time. So that's what we're going to practice. So I'm going to ask you from your home to follow along with these exercises. I'll show them here on my camera. I hope you can see me on the little side screen here. So I just have the names on the screen, but I will kind of show you how we do them. And the more that you practice these exercises, the better you will get. So this is something simple you could do. You could just spend, a couple minutes. Doesn't have to be a long time, but it is about consistency. And over time, you will be really impressed by how easy they become to be able to do these. So the first one that I want to challenge all of you to practice, and you can do it with me now, with one of your hands, doesn't matter which one, I want you to put up a pinky. Okay, so you have your pinky up and the rest of your fingers are down on that hand. And the other hand, you have your thumb out and the other fingers are down, or making a fist. And now at the same time, you're going to switch. So the hand that has a thumb will have a pinky up, and the one with the pinky will have a thumb. And so we want to do this at the same time. So I challenge you to practice that at the same time. It might feel a little bit weird, a little bit uncomfortable at first, like you're kind of lost. But the more you practice it, you'll be impressed by how well you can do this and how quickly you can do this too. All right. So that's pinky to thumb. Now we have something called a finger touch. So for this one, we are going to touch our thumb to our pinky finger on one hand. The other hand, you're going to touch your thumb to your index finger. Okay, just like that. And what we're trying to do is touch every finger to our thumb. But notice that we're going to go in opposite directions. One hand is moving towards the right and one hand is moving towards the left. Okay, so if you notice that you start to do the same thing with both hands, that means we have to start over. right? We want to make sure that we are going in opposite directions, which becomes challenging because our brain wants to do the same thing at the same time with both of our hands. So again, this is why I say people that play an instrument, they're really good at this. They're able to maneuver their hands, do different movements at the same time. Okay, so this is a way to sort of gain or improve that skill there. All right, I hope all of you are following along here. Next one we're gonna do is okay to fist. So okay to fist, one hand, you make an okay sign. The other hand, we make a fist. And now just like the first one, the pinky to thumb, you're going to switch at the same time. Okay, so your other hand will have an okay sign and the other one will have a fist. And you're trying to go as fast as you can at the same time. Folks tend to share that this one is a little bit easier than the pinky to thumb, but it may be challenging and it's okay. It's all about getting better as we practice a bit more. There you go. All right, I have one more. This one is interlace. We're interlacing our hands and we are touching each corresponding finger to each other. So first we have your thumb touching the other thumb, then you put those down and then you put your index fingers together while the other fingers are down. So just those two fingers are up at once, bring them back down and then try to do every finger touching. Ring finger tends to be the difficult one. I struggle with that one. And then you go down to your pinky and you return the opposite direction or coming back to where you started. Okay, so this is just a good, also just flexibility exercise, I feel like, to help bring more movement to our fingers, so that fine motor movement that we need. Okay, so these are 4 exercises that you can do wherever, you know, whenever you remember these. You can do them on your own, you can do them with a friend. It can be fun to kind of challenge yourselves to see how quickly we can move and go through these exercises, or just how well coordinated we can be in getting them done. And like I said, just a couple of minutes a day and you may see a lot of improvement pretty quickly in how well you can do all of these exercises. Okay, one more thing I wanted to practice here, or just sort of share some brain games that you can try at home. These are 2 really fun ones that we like to do in our classes in person. The first one is called the shopping list game, or the grocery list game. So with this one, we are creating an imaginary grocery list, a mental grocery list. So it's best to be done with at least a few people. So we're creating basically a chain of items that we're adding to our list. And each time someone adds an item to the list, we have to repeat all the previous items. So we have to start by saying, I went to the supermarket and bought oranges. Then the next person would add something to the list, but start from the beginning. I went to the supermarket and bought oranges and almonds. I went to the supermarket and bought oranges, almonds, and broccoli. And so you're challenging yourself to add more and more items to the list, make that list longer, and then try to remember from the very beginning as you add more items to the list. So this could be a great one because, again, we're trying to come up or remember things on the spot. Sometimes having that pressure of, I forgot what is on the list, it, again, is stimulating our brain to think better on the spot, to be able to remember and recall information. The second game here is a category game called Name 5 of a Kind. And this one you can definitely do by yourself. You don't need additional people to make this game work. And this is just about coming up with different categories of things and trying to either time yourself, give yourself 15 seconds, or challenge yourself to name as many as you can within a certain amount of time of items in that category. So examples might be you challenge yourself to name types of flowers. So as many types of flowers that you can think of within 20 seconds. Or foods that are red, fruits and vegetables that are red, things that you need to plug in for them to work. So you can come up with the categories. You can also do it as a fun activity with other folks, put it in a bowl, a plate, write it in pieces of paper, scramble it up, and folks kind of pull out a piece of paper and try to name as many from that category. So it could be, you know, a win-win. We are working out our brains, but we're also having fun. We're laughing with other people. We're having a good time. It doesn't seem like a, you know, a chore and exercise that we have to do. And I always do encourage people to find those things that are also fun, that you know are good for you, but you enjoy. If we enjoy them and think that they're fun, we are more likely to stick to them and continue to come back and do those activities. So 2 brain games, but there's a lot of other options too. I know some people love puzzles, jigsaw puzzles or word searches, Sudoku. All of those things can be a great way to keep kind of your brain on its toes, keep it learning new information or just thinking on the spot. Okay, so I think I have one more slide. So my final slide here, we like to do in our vital aging classes something called Take the Challenge. So this is just our challenge to participants to take some sort of action or think about something that we talked about in class. So our challenge for this session is one of 3 things. So you can pick 1, do all 3, whatever you feel like doing. We could, option 1, try completing daily tasks with our non-dominant hands. It could be eating, it could be brushing our teeth. You can really get creative with that. Number 2, challenge your brain by learning a new skill. So decide, I'm going to take a new class, or I'm going to pick up a new hobby. I'm going to try to learn some simple words in a different language. And that could be a great way to try something new and exciting. Or number 3 here, change the order you perform a task or a daily habit. So kind of finding spots in your morning routine or afternoon routine to switch up a little bit and see how that goes for you. Okay, so I do encourage all of you to try at least one of these things, or just maybe learn a little bit more of one of the things that we mentioned in our presentation, and see if that can help in keeping your brain young and stimulated and active, and combat some of those memory changes that happen. We can't completely halt the advancement of our brain, the aging process of that, but at least there are some things here and there that we can do to slow down some of that progression. So I'm open to questions. If anybody has any questions or any comments, please do let me know. You can write it in the chat box or speak over the microphone, whatever you prefer.
I will say, Maria, those hand challenges, wow, that will get your brain thinking.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think they're fun. They're silly, but they definitely can be really helpful.
Yeah. I'm going to do those. That's mine.
Yes, definitely. And Peggy, you can find more online. A lot of these I found just doing a search on brain hand exercises. There's a lot of great also YouTube videos. So if you go to youtube.com and type in the same thing, brain hand exercises, you can find other versions too. These are not the only ones that are out there.
All right. Any other questions for Maria? Oh, there is one in the chat. It was mentioned that stress can rewire the brain. Can this be reversed?
It can, yeah, definitely. So we mentioned exercise. Exercise is a great way to kind of reverse some of the things that stress have caused the brain. So some of that damage that has been done. So I wouldn't say that in all cases it's complete reversal, but you can definitely help yourself and your brain health by picking up on some of these healthy lifestyle changes that we've mentioned, or at least slow down the what is the word? Slow down how quickly the brain may start to age. Yeah. But exercise is wonderful. We definitely want to make sure we're incorporating exercise. Thank you, Paige.
Awesome. All right. If there's any more questions, I want to thank Maria for coming. And I agree with Becky. The pinky thumb thing was really hurting my brain. Like, oh, what do
It's a tough one. I think that's one of the tougher ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've gotten pretty good at it because I've done it several times in my classes, and also I like to do them just for fun. So you will notice getting better the more that you do them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Maria, for being with us today and for everyone else who joined us. I did want to mention our next Healthy at Home webinar. We're doing these now on the second Tuesday of every month. So the next one's going to be on May 9th. And we're going to have a presentation by someone from the Alta Veterinarian Hospital. It's going to be really interesting. It's the link between human and animal interaction and how interacting with animals can help with both your mental and physical health. So that will be really interesting. That'll be on May 9th at 2 o'clock. So hopefully you can all join us then. And I think, and there is one more question in the chat. Are the replays available of your class? Marianne, I think if you're asking, we did record this today and we post all of our webinars on our YouTube channel. So it's Salt Lake County Aging and Adult Services. That's the YouTube channel where all of our recorded webinars are posted. Does that answer your question, Marianne, or is there something else that you wanted about replays? Okay, great. All right, thanks again, Maria, and everyone else for joining us today. Have a great afternoon.